All right, here is our video on complex fractions. The first thing that I want to talk about before I define complex fractions is I want to talk about what does the fraction bar mean when you have a fraction. So for example, if I have 25 over 7, this bar right here isn't just holding a place or just separating the 25 from the 7. That bar means division. So 25 over 7 is the same thing as 25 divided by 7 written like this. And it's the same thing as 25 divided by 7 written like this if I was going to do long division. So if I am going to do long division here, I would start like this. 7 goes into 25 3 times. And then what I do with that 3 is multiply it by the 7, bring it down here as 21, and then subtract it from the 25. And now I have a remainder of 4. And I can write this as a mixed number. Remember, that's a mixture of a whole number and a fraction, where 3 is the whole number part, the remainder 4 is the numerator, and the divisor 7 is my denominator. And just as some additional math, if I wanted to take this number and rewrite it back as an improper fraction, 25 over 7, I would do this. I would do 7 times 3 plus 4. So 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25, and then I would have my denominator of 7. So when you have a fraction written like this, if you're writing it up or down, you can rewrite it left to right as whatever's in the top of your fraction or numerator divided by whatever's in the bottom or denominator. And then when you go to do long division, the top or numerator number goes inside and the bottom or denominator goes on the outside. So keeping those things in mind, we are going to talk about complex fractions. First, what are they? They are fractions that have fractions in them. So you can have a fraction in both the numerator and the denominator like this, 1/2 over 3/4. You can have one where you just have the fraction in the denominator, or one where the fraction is only in the numerator. These are all examples of complex fractions. And one way that you might use complex fractions in higher level math is if you are doing trig ratios, like you're doing sine equals opposite over hypotenuse, and maybe the opposite value and or the hypotenuse value is fractions. And so when you set up your ratio, you'll have a complex fraction and you'll need to know how to simplify it. So how do we simplify complex fractions? I want you to, I'm going to put the 4 steps up here and I want you to pause the video and take a moment and copy them down. We are going to start first by rewriting left to right. Second, multiply by the reciprocal, aka keep, change, flip. That means keep the first fraction the same, change division to multiplication, and flip the second fraction. Then we're going to multiply across the top and bottom. That means we're going to multiply the numerators together and the denominators together. And then that will give us one fraction, and then we will simplify that fraction. So pause your video and copy these steps down. All right, so I'm going to do an example for you and then ask you to pause your video and do one by yourself. So here's the one we're going to do together. 1/2 over 3/4. And I'm going to work this problem on the right side of this line and give some little details about the problem on the left. So our first step is going to be rewriting it from left to right. So that means 1/2 divided by 3/4. The next thing I'm going to do is keep, change, flip, or multiply by the reciprocal. So keep the first fraction the same, change division to multiplication, and flip, or take the reciprocal of, the second fraction. Then we are going to multiply across the top and bottom. So 1 times 4 is 4, and the denominators 2 times 3 makes 6. And the last step is to simplify. So that means divide out of the numerator and the denominator any factor that they have in common. And in this case, they have a 2 in common. So that fraction simplifies to 2/3. And over here where it says practice problem 1, I'm going to give you a problem to do on your own. It is 1/4 over 3/8. I want you to pause the video and work this problem yourself. And just as a heads up, you're actually going to coincidentally get the same answer as this one. You're going to get 2/3. So if you're not getting 2/3, try and figure out where you're going wrong. So pause your video now and try that problem. Here is my work. I started writing it left to right. Then I did multiply by the reciprocal, or keep the first one the same, change division to multiply, and flip the second fraction. Then I multiplied the numerators and the denominators. That gave me 8/12. And I divided their common factor out, or I should say their greatest common factor. Divide out 4, and I get 2/3. On the chance that you only divided out by 2, you would end up with 4/6. Now that's not wrong, it's just not finished. So it would be a partial credit on a quiz or test. You would want to divide out by 2 again, and then that would get you to 2/3. And then the last practice problem I want to do is one with a mixed number. So it's 5 1/3 over 4. So there's actually 2 sections of this problem we need to fix before we can follow the steps. Because the step I'm concerned about is step 3, which says to multiply across the top and bottom. So multiply the numerators and denominators. But the way that this problem is written, 4 doesn't have a denominator. And then 5 1/3, it has a numerator and denominator, but if you just use these for your multiplying step, you wouldn't be taking into account the 5. So we're going to do 2 things. We're going to fix the 4 by putting it over 1, because any integer over 1 still has the same value. And we're going to fix the 5 1/3 by converting it to an improper fraction. So we do that by taking the denominator 3 times the whole number of 5 plus the numerator of 1. So that's 15 plus 1 is 16, and the denominator stays the same. So now my problem looks like this. 16/3 over 4/1. So now I start with step 1, writing it left to right. Now I multiply by the reciprocal, so I keep, change, flip, keep the first one the same, change division to multiply, and flip the second fraction. I multiply across the top the numerators, 16 times 1, and across the bottom the denominators, 3 times 4. So I'm at 16/12. I'm going to divide out their greatest common factor, which is 4. And that gives me 4/3. And I will accept this answer, or if you want to convert it to a mixed number, you would just do a real quick division problem. 4 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 one time with a remainder of 1, and that will become 1 1/3.